we all have heard about people pleasing, but I noticed a more specific category of people pleasers, which is parent pleasers. I don't know if these people also tend to please everybody else they encounter in their lives, or do they specifically please their parents only, or they can do both, or I don't know. But it's actually pretty fascinating to watch because, well, I'm in my 30s, and I know many other people in their 30s and people who are older. And it's really fascinating to watch that in society it is considered that an adult person is the person who turns 18 or 21, finished their studies and is working. And there are people with big careers. There are people who are having their own kids or own houses, maybe even multiple houses, and yet they are not exactly adults because they're still trying to please their parents. They're still trying to prove something to parents. They're still relying so much on their parents' opinion instead of developing their own, because, well, we live in a different time than their parents lived when they were the same age. Or maybe like sometimes parents are not exactly the best people to give advice. Like becoming a parent or growing old does not make you wise or smart by definition. Of course, there are really intelligent, great parents out there. But from my observations and personal experience, just the fact of having kids, even if they're grown up, just the fact of being 50, 60, 70, does not really make you a reliable person who necessarily gives good advice. And if this person who's older and has kids and maybe even grandkids might give some good advice on certain things, that does not by definition make them a good advisor on some other things as well. So it is very fascinating to me to watch people who are considered to be very adult and independent in some ways, according to our society standards, still being little children who need their parents to tell them what to do, who need their parents to fix things, to do solutions, make solutions, and just to rely on the parent. And I'm not saying that it is a bad thing, and it's great to embrace the experience of having an adult, hopefully both adults, that are higher than you in your family tree, and great if if they're still alive and they're there. But I don't know, it just sometimes is a little bit annoying to watch people who believe that they are super adult and super independent really relying too much and not questioning whatever their parents say or think, or really trying very hard to to get the good reaction from their parents, instead of trying to listen to themselves and trying to figure out what really works for them personally, which is not necessarily always what their parents want for them. And unfortunately, it's very common that parents don't really want the child to be happy and fulfilled. They want the child to be a certain way that makes the parents somehow feel good about themselves and make them look good in the eyes of other people and the society. And a good example is, parents terrorizing their adult kids with, when are you gonna get married? When are you gonna give me grandchildren? You must be a lawyer or a doctor because this is a well-respected job and it pays well, and I worry for you and I want you to have the best. While the child might be a very talented artist or anything else that is not a lawyer or a doctor. And seeing so many people who choose their career and invest so much time and energy into trying to, like, also lawyer and doctor are the professions that really take a lot of time to be able to practice and to do these jobs, and these are pretty difficult jobs, and they're not for everyone, of course. And choosing this job just because your parent wants you to, and feeling guilty that you might want something else, and instead of pursuing something else that you really feel like you want to do it, or something you have a talent for, or maybe something you don't have a talent for, but you really, really want to do it, and you really want to put a lot of effort into learning and perfecting. Instead, people tend to choose what will make them look like a good son or daughter. And it's sometimes, like, it is fascinating to look at adult people pleasing their parents, but sometimes it is very hurtful, honestly. And maybe I feel this way because I personally do not rely on my parents, and seeing other people who have their parents to rely on, and parents who have given them good opportunities and have given them support, at least in some things, not necessarily at everything. Of course, it digs my own trauma, because there is partially some jealousy to that, because I cannot afford giving the right to make decisions for me to my parents, and I have to be the one who does all the hard who makes all the hard decisions and deals with all the consequences of all my decisions and actions. And I guess this is what makes you an ultimate adult, when you have to rely on yourself and not expect that somebody's gonna fix something for you or just decide for you, and you can just become a baby for a while. That fully depends on the adult person. And it is fine as long as you're a baby who is not able to do things. But seeing people who have graduated and have been working for some time or a long time, still relying so much and still being those kids. Yeah, it's like sometimes it is painful, sometimes it's annoying, sometimes it is fascinating, because it's great to have support and to have help when you need it, and to have the people who care for you and have your best interest in mind. But also, as I guess we all know, to a certain extent, is that parents do not always, by definition, really love us unconditionally, unfortunately. Even though that's what we expect, and that is basically the definition of being a parent, I guess. But in reality, it's not that simple, unfortunately. So, it is a very interesting phenomenon, I would say, because a person can be making a shitload of money, doing a very responsible, complicated job that like requires lots of expertise and skills and shit and everything, and yet not being able to rely on themselves outside their job, let's say, because parents don't only dictate the job choices, but also the life choices of when to settle down and get a partner, and when to have a baby. And having a grandchild is very different from having a child. And it's very annoying when parents are bombarding an adult person with these questions and putting so much pressure on them. So I don't know, it's just I keep using the word fascinating, and it is what I mean, but I guess I'm not completely honest if I just use the word fascinating, because it really doesn't feel like there are many adult people in this world, to be honest. There are billions of people over the age of 18 or 21, like the legal official age, which also does not mean anything, because there are people who have to grow up much sooner than the others. But there are very, very few adults. Very few adults, unfortunately. And being an adult is something very scary, of course, because you really have to take all the responsibility of everything that happens in your life and everything that you do. And it's also convenient to blame somebody, right? Like if your parents forced you to become a doctor, but you didn't want to, and now you're miserable because you have to do this super difficult, super important job, but you do not like it and you do not enjoy it. And it still gives us certain kind of pleasure to blame somebody else for it. It kind of relieves some tension, because all my parents forced me to do that. And it's, again, avoidance of responsibility. And it is scary, and it is hard to tell your parents that I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to do that, and I appreciate your concern and your worry, and I understand that you want what's best for me, and this might be a respectful, good job, but this is not something that I want to do, and I want to spend my life and my time and my energy doing something that is more fulfilling to me. And somehow coming out to your parents as an adult person who takes responsibility for their own actions and decisions seems to be much harder and energy draining than living the life that you believe your parents want for you, and believing that they know better. And I would say it is sad. Yeah. I would say it's not just fascinating, it's also very sad to hear people, to see people really not being satisfied with different areas of their own lives, and them just saying like, but like, I cannot do that because, well, why, my mom will not agree with it, my dad will not support me, or they will disown me. And I'm like, well, I mean, you are not a baby who's not able to feed themselves or walk or you know, any other things that babies are not capable of doing. And if your parents are as cruel as this, then maybe sometimes setting some very strict boundaries, and sometimes even, you know, like not being in touch is not that bad. Because unfortunately, lots of relationships with parents are actually very toxic and abusive. And I know that it is difficult to get out of a relationship even with your toxic and abusive partner, but you have to do that for your own brighter future. But sometimes relationships can be like that, even with your parents. And just the fact that these people are your parents does not mean that these people know what's best for you and that they always have your best interest in mind. So for some people, it works to really cut the contact. For others, is to set some stronger boundaries and increase the distance between you. And everybody should find their own solution, because some parents, I guess, they're not really toxic on purpose. It's their own traumas are talking. But, you know, like, it can be a good wake-up call for them to also realize that, well, actually, yeah, I'm not exactly doing the right thing here, because this is my child, and, well, I guess I love them unconditionally, I guess. I don't think that all parents feel this way, unfortunately. And this can actually be helpful to build a new relationship with your parent, because, I mean, yeah, like, parent-child is kind of like this, but at the same time, now you both are adult. And even though they're like 20, 30, 40 years older than you are an adult as well now. And even though you have lived here like less years compared to them, that does not mean that you necessarily had less life experience, and that you're not able to make your own decisions. And it's very important to learn from your own mistakes as well. And my experience, and not only my experience, shows that people can keep giving you advice so many times, but you can hear about how touching a fire is not safe and it's not good for you, but you will never really understand it until you really put your finger in the open fire and burn it, and then you will realize that takes just one burn to realize that fire is not good to play with. And hours of lectures about that are not exactly very effective. So one of the important things that parents can give their kids and can do for their kids is allowing them to make their own mistakes. And I know that there is this kind of instinct in parents as well that, well, I know better. I have learned this from my experience. I just have to pass it to my child, and they don't have to go through this painful experience. I'm not sure it works this way. I don't think it also works this way, let's say, with toddlers. Right? Like if you are creating a completely sterile, safe environment around a toddler, they will still have to catch up on these things later, because they will not understand, like, what the fuck. They have to learn to fall, to get some cuts, to get some bruises from falling or like breaking things or whatever. And I'm also talking from experience, because my parents also like, they created a super sterile environment around me, and it lasted for way longer than being a toddler. And you know, no child will be grateful to you as their parent if you basically isolate them from real life. And it's great if you can provide conditions in which the child doesn't starve, has access to good things, can get, you know, the toys, the clothes, experiences that they want to, but you cannot fully control everything that happens to your child, and you cannot lock them up, even though I know some people do that too, which is clearly very fucking unhealthy. But when your child, as a little bird, will finally leave the nest, whether it happens after they finish school or university, or when they get married or something, and when they face the real world, talking from experience as well, they will be fucking mad at you, and it's questionable whether they will be able to forgive you as their parent, that they did not learn so many things when it was easy for them to just be introduced to them, and now they have to catch up on things that other people of their age are very familiar with. And you realize that no matter how intelligent you are, like, your life experience is just lagging behind, and you just have so much catching up to do that it just takes away from you, and like, realizing that you were not much in control of your own life. And again, you can have a choice in this kind of situation, like, okay, should I keep depending on my parents because it feels safe and familiar? Or you might start hating on your parents and just cut the ties, or anything in between. But I honestly have not seen a person who made some important life decisions based on their parents' expectations or traumas or preferences, especially if these decisions were against the person's intentions and heart, and something that they really desired. And the truth is that statistically also, it's more probable that your parents will die before you do. And I also have seen this kind of experience. I love observing people so much. I learn so much from watching what other people do and how they react and how they behave. And seeing an almost 50-year-old person being completely clueless and being like a child when their 80-year-old mother died. It's a pretty painful experience to watch that happen, because it kind of means that there is still a lot of adulting pending, and you can put it away for as long as you want, or as long as the parents are alive. And I personally believe that it's amazing if your parents are alive and well, and you can really enjoy your experiences together, and you don't hold on to traumas. And chances are that your parents are probably the ones who gave you most of your trauma, if not all. But I think that if you both, or three of you, or like you and your parents as like a separate unit, can work through it if there is this shit. And you can enjoy your time together, and you can really like build good memories, even if in the beginning it did not really, like, it was not perfect. It's amazing. It's amazing to, you know, like, to also be accepted as an adult person by your parent. And it's not that you need it, because most parents, they just cannot accept that their child is an adult person, or they can just do that in very specific situations that are convenient for them, right? So sometimes they want to keep their kids close, and they will be just like, yeah, you can stay here, oh, I will cook for you, I'll do like all these kinds of things. And then suddenly they're like, oh yeah, like, I'm tired of these kids, like she or he is like 20, they have to live away. And then they suddenly just cut everything, like, yeah, you should get the fuck out of here, like, you're 20, like, you're supposed to live here until 18. This is also kind of fucked up, right? And as a parent, it's kind of your responsibility to prepare your child for adulting. And I do believe that it is possible to fix your relationships with parents if they're not exactly very good and very healthy, but it takes a lot of work. And a thing about humans is that we don't really want to put the work. We don't really want to feel the pain. We will suppress it as hard as we can, ignoring that it just rots there and it doesn't go anywhere, and it starts affecting us in the ways that we could not even imagine were possible. And the thing about adulthood is that, along with all these responsibilities and scary things, and to be honest, like, there are not too many things we actually have to take care of. Like, if you don't want to, there are quite a few things that you really kind of have to take care of as an adult, without depending on your parents, and depending on how great like, how, I don't know, vibrant you want your life to be. You of course can add more and more and more responsibilities, but like, the basic set is actually quite short. It's like keeping yourself clean to your own standards, keeping yourself fed and relatively healthy. That's not too hard to do. It's not. And I mean, if you have higher standards than that, then you probably also have the ability to maintain those standards as well. So, like, the scary part about adulting, it's mostly taking the responsibility for your decisions and the consequences of these decisions and actions. But it's not so bad, because, like, as an adult, you can also have all the freedom. And again, the freedom is a very interesting concept, because as kids, we think that freedom is eating ice cream for breakfast, let's say, right? Or staying up all night playing video games or watching books or whatever. Yes, you can do that as an adult, but that's not the most fun part of it, because, you know, like, with great, how like, what is it in Spider-Man? Like, with great power comes great responsibility. I would rephrase that. Oh, I actually would rephrase that with great responsibility comes great power. Because as an adult, you also can make so many decisions, and not depending on your parents directly, which is like, obviously, like, let's say you live at your parents' house with your parents. It's pretty limiting. Even if your parents are liberal as fuck, it's pretty limiting. There are also ways in which we depend on our parents indirectly, which are not that obvious. And this is like the psychological attachment. right? Like you can make a shitload of money, live in your own house, yet still, like in every small move, you would first, like your mind would still go through this filter of, what would my parents tell me to do? What would their reaction be? What? And the thing is that this filter, it might not actually register in your conscious mind. So like you can jump from A to B, like what my parents would think on, or what my parents would tell me to do in this situation. So without realizing of that distance between the A and the B. And it is more complicated, of course, and you're like, no, but this is what I want, this is what I know, I believe in. Most of the time it's not. Most of the time it's what your parents want for you, what your parents taught you, what your parents inherited from their parents, you know, aka generational trauma and shit. And it's very important to question these things. And I think the real adulting is when you really, really question every single thing in your life. Most importantly, your beliefs. But sometimes it's also the way you even dress and the way you eat and the way, like, your household habits, because mostly those are the ones you inherit from your family. And once you move out, even if you go to another country, another continent, another fucking planet, that does not, by definition, make you an adult. Sorry, but it does not. And you will just, like, if you really start observing yourself, you will just see that you are just doing exactly what your parents were doing, except for some parts, maybe you will be doing a few things like the opposite way. Because again, transition into an adult person, no matter how old you are, it requires a lot of attention to lots of things at once. And of course, you cannot keep track and control of every single action and thought and emotion that you're gonna have. So lots of the things, especially like this mundane kind of household things, they will happen automatically. And if you start like observing yourself and questioning it, you will realize that you're basically copying everything that was happening in your household. And it's good if it was like a nice, supportive household where like everybody was doing something, helping each other, supporting each other. That's great. Unfortunately, that's often not exactly the case. And then once you like enter a relationship, these things are gonna kick in super hard. Not just the household habits or lack thereof, talking from experience, but also the way your parents talk to each other, talked to you, the things they believed in, their behaviors. It's all gonna kick in super fucking hard, and very often it's gonna affect you and your relationships and all spheres of your life in a pretty negative way. So it is really fucking important to figure out which of the things that you inherit from your parents, which are not limited to their house or some family jewelry, which of these things you want to keep and which of the things you want to break and replace with something much better. And it does take work. It does take effort. It also is very fucking challenging to realize that, well, your parents are not exactly always the smartest and best people in the world. And there are things they're really wrong about, or the things that they think they're right about are wrong for you. And I remember, like, I think I was like a preteen when, for the first time, I realized that my parents actually did not know what they were talking about. I don't even remember what the topic was, but it was fucking terrifying to realize that my parents, the people that also, like, they also kind of worked quite hard on making me believe that they know best everything about everything, that they actually don't, and they actually fuck things up while they were not allowing me to fuck anything up. Like, the very few times when I fucked something up, it was a fucking disaster. But realizing that they are not the wisest, smartest people in the world, it was fucking terrifying. Okay? But now I realize that some other people, even being of my age, like 30-ish, they still kind of block this kind of realization that their parents might not be always right. Or I would say that sometimes their parents might be wrong. And they might have, like, some people might have really great, super intelligent, awesome parents. But nobody in this world knows everything about everything. And nobody is always, like, right. And yeah, it's just like, you just see this, sometimes some people, like, holding on to this belief that their parents are right so hard that they completely just block and suppress this kind of feeling that actually, yeah, they're not right. And it is okay, and it is fine to accept that your parents do not always know everything better, because they have their own trauma, they have their own beliefs. They were born in a different time and raised in a different time and in a different country, and sometimes even in a country that does not even fucking exist anymore. So there is no way that they can know better than you of how to live your life. And of course, they might know a lot of things, and they might still give you a shitload of really good, supportive, cool advice. But that does not mean that by definition, everything that they tell you is exactly true for you. It might be true for them, but it's important for you, if you want to become an actual adult, and you don't need to, like, you don't want to wait for your parents to die, because technically once your grandparents and parents, because like technically grandparents most of the time also die before the parents, then the parents, and then the children. And the thing is that when parents die, it's kind of like an ultimate adulting. It's happening because there is no parent anymore. Like, literally, there is no parent anymore. There is the memory of the parent at best, and then you kind of have to adult. And this is very difficult. This is very hard, and I don't think you really have to wait for your parents to die to be able to become your own person. Because very often what also happens is that an adult person has parents, loves their parents, and tries, like, as an act of love, tries to live the life that their parents would want this person to have, in this person's opinion. So it's not like the parents are actually actively pushing a certain lifestyle, but the child, who's kind of technically by age an adult, is trying to squeeze themselves into the lifestyle, in the idea of the life that they would think their parents would be happy with if this person lived this kind of life. And the funny and sad thing about it is that if they really honestly talked to themselves about it and then talked to their parents, I think it often turns out that the parents actually would be more happy if the child was happy, rather than living a certain way, or like having exactly the same job as their parents, or like marrying at the same age. Like a very common misconception among adult kids is that as an act of gratitude and as the act of love, they're trying to copy their parents' life, which is not necessarily something their parents are even asking them to do. Some parents are asking for that, and it is fucked up, in my personal humble opinion. But very often, even in close-knit families, there is still this lack of intimacy, and then the child, well, being an adult, still is trying to, to guess what the parents want from them and trying to squeeze themselves into it, and it does make them miserable. And I think people should talk to each other more, I guess. Because also when you talk, like when you believe something, you think about something many times in your head, like your brain receives it a certain way. But once you say it out loud and you hear it through your own fucking ears, not just through your thoughts, very often it's giving you a completely different perspective on that. And very often whatever you believed was very real and was a really good thought turns out to be bullshit. And you're like, oh my god, what the fuck? Like, I was holding it to it like for fucking years, but this is fucking ridiculous. And it's fine and it is okay. I just feel like people would really benefit from embracing adulthood as not something that is super fucking difficult, but as something that gives you a lot of opportunities and possibilities to have an awesome fucking life. And ideally, the life that you could share with your parents, who would hopefully be very happy about this thing. But unfortunately, that's not what I really see happening. I see people having a lot of guilt, struggling to say no to their parents or family just because they're parents or their family. And as somebody who broke out of this cycle, I would say to me this sometimes very fucking annoying to watch, because like, hey, you're like technically a successful adult person with a job, house, family, maybe even your own kids or whatever, and yet you just cannot really be yourself because you believe that your parents should tell you who to be. And I don't know, in my personal humble opinion, if your parents cannot accept you for who you are, whether it's your sexual orientation, your job preference, your hair color, anything that you choose for yourself and anything that is you, I don't see it worth it try to hold on to the fact that they are my parents, so I'm gonna just shut the fuck up and do what makes them comfortable. Yeah, that is my opinion. Because I guess also from what I have observed is that once the adult child dares to actually use these measures of, okay, like, if this really is not working, if you're really making me fucking miserable all the time, I am not gonna hold on to this and I'm gonna cut the ties with you. I would say that many times it makes parents realize that, yeah, they're actually too harsh and it's not really worth it to be so harsh, because they lose so much more if they hold on to this harshness. Of course, it doesn't happen in all the cases, but sometimes this radical honesty with yourself and these people who happen to be your parents, who are not always the best people in your life, unfortunately. Great if it's not your case, and if it is your case, you're probably not watching this far. But it is very hard to also cut ties, and like to realize that, well, you are actually now the ultimate adult in your own kind of family that is basically you, while your parents are still kind of alive. And it brings a lot of pain and shit, of course. But I would say that if that's your case, it doesn't really even compare to all the pain and shit that you have to encounter if you force yourself to communicate with people who are toxic to you. And you know, like, I also felt a lot of blame hearing this phrase of, but they're your parents. And my mother was really like, since I was small, she was repeating this sentence of saying, but when I die, you will regret behaving badly or stuff like that. And technically, like, this is something that people do experience when their parents die. They really regret misbehaving or saying some things. But also, this is kind of thing that also fucks you up, because it makes you very guilty, and it makes you ashamed and very fucking scared. And instead of living the life and maybe working on the relationship that you have with your parent, it just takes away. It just makes you put on a mask, suppress yourself, and having basically a fake relationship. So this phrase of, but they're your parents, and when they die you will regret it, it doesn't hurt me anymore, because I am their child. And I would say that it's the parents who, well, hopefully decide to have a child. Sometimes it happens a little bit unexpectedly. The child, by definition, loves the parents unconditionally. But it's the parents' job to hopefully they also love the child unconditionally. Eventually, apparently, because I've heard about postpartum shit, when women like fucking hate on the baby, which, I mean, it's not too crazy, I would say. But as an adult person who has an adult child, I mean, it's kind of like, it's your job to work on the relationship as well, right? And as an adult, it's your job to show your child, who's a child, how to express love. And it's your job to give love in form of words of affirmation and actions, instead of just, you know, getting a child and expecting this child to fix your fucking life and to achieve the dreams that you had, to achieve the goals that you had, and for some reason you couldn't. And definitely not blaming the child for losing your career or losing your body or personality or anything. So whenever somebody says like, but they're your parents, there is a nice phrase to respond back, and it is, but I am their child. And if they treat me like shit, it is my job to give myself the love that I was supposed to get from parents, which was supposed to give me good confidence, high self-esteem, and ability to walk out of the door from bad situations, from situations of disrespect at work, in relationships, anywhere. But instead, they were the ones who treated me this way. And it is my job to kind of fill in this gap, that instead of filling, they just made it fucking bigger. So I do believe that it is the parents and grandparents and any older member of the family job to show the love to the child, and to show them the unconditional love and support. And if they fail to do so, and the child growing up realizes that they need this, and one of the ways for them to be able to give that to themselves and basically do the parents' job, and part of it is to cut ties with the parents, there is nothing wrong or shameful about it. Because, like, unconditional love is a thing. And if your parents, as technically only people who are supposed to really give that to you, fail to do so, you have to take on their job and give this love to yourself. And in an ideal world, parents don't die at all. Um, but the time that we share with our parents is uh it's very nice, very nice. And it fulfills us and gives us the confidence and the ability to move forward with our lives when they're gone and when they're still there. And it's kind of their job to teach us to choose the best things for ourselves. And if parents fail to do so, it is kind of your job to become your own parent and to fix this thing, even if that means cutting off the actual parents from your life. And hopefully, it is also something that will teach them, because probably they also have their reason to behave this way, and probably they were not given the unconditional love from their parents. So technically, your grandparents are the assholes in this whole story. But sometimes we learn from the opposite. And in some cases, it is really helpful. And the parents realize that being so harsh on their adult child, even if they were harsh on them when they were a child, like, you can change. You can change for the better, and you can improve your relationship with your parents, and you can improve the relationship with yourself. But if your relationship with your parents is something that prevents you from having a good relationship with yourself, because like ultimately, like, also, if you try to parent please too hard, and then let's say like parents are dead, you will probably like hold on to this kind of habit, and you will just quickly find somebody else, just another adult person, to, or maybe have your own child. It kind of involves another adult person in a way, in most cases. uh, and you'll just keep on pleasing them instead of living your own life. So get the fuck out of this fucking pattern and this very, very fucking bad habit, and learn to please yourself. And that is a poor choice of words, but I do not regret it. But for real, like, you know what I mean. Learn about yourself. Learn about who the fuck you are and what the fuck you want. Uh, be good to yourself. Be nice to yourself. Be supportive of yourself. And I think lack of this acceptance and support is, in most cases, the reason why people do fucked up shit. Of course, I'm not encouraging you to do fucked up shit and hurting other people, but choosing yourself and walking away from situations that and people that don't serve you uh, is better than staying in them. Because, like, we all are villains in someone's stories. Like, even if we see our parents as villains in our story, they will see us as villains who did not appreciate them, blah, blah, blah. So, like, being a villain in someone's story is, it's not too bad. I mean, it might happen, and it probably will happen, and it definitely has happened before, and it's fine. It's okay. You can deal with this. But just make sure not to pass this thing on, and to break this fucking pattern, and be the adult in your life that you maybe did not have growing up, or you did not have as an adult. And stop, what's the word outsourcing uh the responsibility and the choices in your own life to somebody else, even if they are your parents. And remember this awesome rephrase that I came up a little earlier in this video, with great responsibility comes great power. Thank you for listening. I know it has been helpful to some people. It was probably not relevant to others, and it's fine. Well, this is one of my unpopular opinions, and I really do refuse to say the shit of liking and subscribing and sharing with friends, because I do believe if the content you saw is helpful or fun or is is beneficial in any way, you don't have to be told to interact with it. It is a natural reaction to share some gratitude, show some gratitude. So yeah, go out there, be nice to yourself, break the pattern, and give yourself the unconditional love if you are lacking any. See you in the other videos that I am planning to make. Bye!